we could, and then move on to the next phase of our training. And so that really impressed me, because I thought, okay, that's a magic that I don't see very often in a teacher, because you can have a good teacher, but do they have the magic? And she had it for me.
So I'm here again in my interview process, and I'm with Helen Noakes, and well, Helen and I, we go back such a long time, and every time I think of Helen, the first thing I think about is the first day I met you, and that was the doorstep of Natural Bodies, with cropped hair that was orange, with one of the biggest smiles I think I'd ever met, and such a dynamic looking, energetic person. And I just thought, how can you say no to this person that wants to come and do massage at my center at that time? And from there on in, we've been friends and colleagues ever since. And it's actually been remarkable to see how Helen's grown with her work and practice. Helen has we'll talk about this as we go into the chat anyway, but Helen worked from my studio in Brighton, been involved in the yoga process, been through teacher training, and has just literally blown out there into the world, and is actually an energy bigger than life, which I've always loved about Helen. So Helen Noakes, welcome for being on this In the Raw series of interviews.
Oh, thanks, Gary. You're being really lovely. I'll take all of that. Thanks very much.
My pleasure. And you're in Greece right now, so there's been quite a journey to where you've been, because I mean, over the last, well, I don't know how many years you've been traveling so much, haven't you?
Yeah, 20 years in India, every winter, and finally landed in a place I can call home. We can call home. So this is my roots, and I'm very, very blessed, very, very blessed to be here. And it's been an interesting journey to get here through this very, interesting time.
Yeah.
And it was actually a very pleasant, very easy journey to get here. And yeah, I'm enjoying everything. A whole new rhythm, slowing down, because Greek culture is all about everything takes so much time. And if the shop's not open at 2, like shop opens like possibly 3, but everyone's still around at 4:30, and no one questions why it's not open. It's just not open. You just hang out in a cafe until it is.
And the last time I saw you was in India, because I was out there with Rupert Johnson, Steve Bracken, and you as well, with the teacher training that you're running. And that was January, I think. And that was it January or February? No, February. And the course lasts a month. But we'll get to that at some point a little bit later in this. But Helen, describe what it is that you do. I mean, how did you start with what you do? I mean, what got you on the whole road of, I want to do something with people's bodies? What had you wake up one day and come to that decision?
Wow. Well, getting to you was actually a very big part of that. But I was in Guatemala, as one does, completely by accident. It wasn't planned at all. I'm going to cut a very long story short, but basically I met this incredible Spanish woman that downloads a certain energy, and I think I was in my late 20s or something, and it was my birthday, and I was on Lake Atitlan in San Pedro Sula, and there was a beautiful meditation center that was built of pyramids. Every hut was a pyramid, and there was a temple, and the pyramid sunk down, and there were these huge crystals at each corner, and a massive, like, round, beautiful quartz crystal in the middle. And she would give sessions. So she gave a tarot session, and she basically lined out the rest of my life in this tarot card session, and all of it basically happened. All of it. And I can remember it exactly what she said to the word to this day, because it was such a profound, it was one of those moments that you'll remember when you leave your body. And I think when I leave my body, that will be another moment flashing past. And it was, I was in the theatre doing wigs, and I was on a 2-year trip trying to make my mind up, like many of us do. We come to that Saturn return time, late, end of the 20s. What the hell am I going to do with my life? I want to change. Anyway, she said, you're going to be doing yoga, you're going to be going to India, you're going to be training to do body work. And I just, I'm not going to India. No, well, I don't want to go there. And I just thought, and then basically when I came back from that 2-year trip, I thought, where should I go, Edinburgh or Brighton? So I just went to Brighton, and basically, another long story short, met Miss Jane Manzi, and we and other people, and Glyndebourne, and I was still working. And then I met you after being doing lots of Iyengar classes. I met you at Natural Bodies and all the wonderful teachers you had then. I thought, this is it. And so I decided to persuade you to take me on after I had already been to India and trained in Shavruti Karamal, massage by foot pressure. But I'd also previously done bodywork training with Claire Maxwell Hudson back in the day. And that was in 1990 something. Can't remember, it was a long time ago. And yeah, and that body work, and then that gradual transition from doing wigs in the theatre, I was kind of doing half and half, and I was massaging everybody at Glyndebourne, and I'd already, and then I went off to India to learn stuff and got taken in by that India sucking me back in. I'd already been there partying and God knows what else, and shaving my hair off and doing crazy shit. But then all of that kind of came together into the front door of Natural Bodies, where that real chance came for me to leave this old life behind of theatre and long hours and being inside and feeling so disconnected from nature, but also going into another world. It was very interesting being in that theatre world and coming out into a whole brave new world of completely new experiences. And for me, touch and sensuality was so important. That then I got into the Jing girls who are in Natural Bodies now. I got into them and had a bit my time with them, and that all coincided with being at Natural Bodies and having sessions from you and sessions from Heiner, our lovely Heiner there.
Yes.
Great guy. He saved my bacon quite a few times, I can say. And so all of those interconnections all kind of waved into something. And then I kind of molded myself in this kind of space. Like, remember I met Tom and ended up giving him a chav, and I was wetting my knickers basically. I was so nervous. Remember, I was with him for 3.5 hours, and I came out really red, and you were like, are you okay? So yeah, I did it. That was your first course that you offered with Tom at Natural Bodies, right? So
well, that was in the late 90s, wasn't it? Or no, the first anatomy trains in that building was in 2000, I think. Or
2000 it was. I've still got the handout he gave and all my notes. So and then obviously, because I was giving chavs, and I gave you a couple of chavs, and everything kind of it became this team. And I loved working at Natural Bodies because we had such a lot of trust there. Like, this is what we worked out. I put my name down when I was doing it, and I put that money in the envelope. And it was all based on trust. There was no horrible kind of, you have to pay this amount. It was just a wonderful community. And I remember Nikki was running the reception there, and you had your room, your 2 rooms, and we all just kind of merged. And then when you said, I'm doing this 2-year, I think it was a longer teacher training, I basically made you take me on. I don't think you had a choice.
Well, you had because you were coming to lots of classes as well at that time, but you from your understanding of the body work, and it's interesting because I hadn't known about the theatre stuff, actually. It's interesting you tell me about that, because that's just filled in a gap that I now understand with you, because even in theatre, you understand bodies and people, dynamics and posturing and all of that kind of stuff. But you had an understanding. I mean, your feet gave it away anyway from what you knew to do with the practice. And I just want to sort of steer back to that because you're talking about, you know, giving chavs, the massage. So it's not giving chavs massage. Did I say that? But you know, describe that work. You know, what is that work for people that wouldn't know what it is? Because it is really a profound work.
Thank you. It is. Thank you for honouring that. It really is. When I was at the Claire Maxwell Hudson School of Massage, being a very good girl, one of the teachers said, Helen, you have to go to India and learn this massage. And I was like, oh, and so of course, oh my God, this is how I'm supposed to go to India. So basically, I met a woman called Jessica Loeb, who was doing it for many years. She's a martial artist, she's a singer, an incredible being. I did my dissertation on her, basically, and I wrote a whole essay on her. So I went and had a treatment, and basically, you're lying on the floor, naked, and there's a rope in the ceiling going from one wall to the other, so you have it as balance. You can have many ropes, it doesn't really matter. You see a lot of people using 2 ropes in India. And she basically glided and burrowed her feet into my body beautifully. And it felt like she had her hands on a stick, and she danced on my body. And my body became so compliant and yielded to her feet. And it was this, I've never felt anybody in my life touch my body so intimately with their feet. And it was like this huge angelic wing undulating and penetrating me through the skin. And I was just, okay, this is what I need to be doing. So she arranged for me to go, and I finally got, long story, short version, got to India. I got to the teacher that taught her and all the lineage of her gurus and everything. And I got there, and it's in the middle of nowhere. I had to catch 2 buses. It was a place called Villa, and I had to shout the name to the bus driver in Trivandrum bus station, and they'd go, and I didn't know if that meant yes or no, so I just jump on a bus and hope I would get off at the right stop. Finally got to this woman's house who was going to teach me, and she said, no, I'm not teaching you. And I said, but I've written to you, I've come all the way from England, and what? Well, no. I think you should go to my son. It's much better, you know, basically because I was living at the beach and she disapproved. So I went to meet her son, Vijay, and they trained me in this wonderful art, which is based in the Kalari system. So they use Shavuti Karamal, which basically means massage by foot pressure. But if you translate it properly, it apparently means me stamping on a mat as if I'm wiping my feet at the door. And when you see these guys, these Kalari guys, give massage, they use it to treat injuries, broken bones. They would put you in very contortionist positions and basically pull you around, crack you around, very strong. And so I went to BJ. Luckily, he said, please don't tell anybody, please don't tell anybody I'm massaging you because you're a woman and I'm not supposed to massage women at that time. So it was all a bit secretive. So him and his wife used to work on me, and his feet were absolutely incredible. I mean, the gaps between his toes were just outrageous. And it was like his feet were talking to my body, you know. Brain had nothing to do with it. And I've never, ever received anything like VJ. And I was lying on a wooden slab and slathered in oil, and I was slip sliding around, you know, and he would just like flatten me to the ground. So you had 10 massages, 1 a day, and he would also teach me at the same time. And I would go in there every day, and it would take 2 hours to get there, because I would have to catch 2 buses and a rickshaw, and it was mental. And we had this amazing time. I ended up kind of being part of the family and going to this women's festival. And he trained me for 2 weeks every day, or maybe it was even longer. I remember it being longer, actually. And then that was a wonderful experience. And then when I went back I was living in Brighton, I wanted to carry on my practice and add Shibuya to it. I went back to Jessica and said, look, Jessica, I'm not ready. I don't feel I'm ready. Can you have a look at what I'm doing? So she really had some private lessons with her, refined it. And then later on, we added the sides of the body because I only learned front and back, and later on the sides came. And that's when I started offering it. I went to another clinic first, and then I came to you. And it just just kicked off. It was just wonderful. And I just had loads of people come, and it was such a, I mean, it was 2 hours, you know, I said, look, I have to be with you for 2 hours because you can't just, it's not a kind of go in, go out, you know, you have to, it's such a big thing to do to offer your naked body. So
it's true. I mean, you know, I've had that work with you, and yeah, there's a huge element of trust, and the one thing that feels really good is the coming into your environment. You make that extremely safe straight away. It was, I mean, how to describe it? To receive that was quite something. I mean, I was already struck by your feet, and you know, you've taken care of your feet anyway. You've had to have done that in the same way as a massage practitioner would take care of their hands, and your feet moved in a certain way that you could see the movement of your body evident in your feet all of the time. And then to have the foot on my body, it actually appears bigger. You know, you said, you know, the hand being on a stick. I thought you had a foot on a stick and you were just rubbing it up and down my body. But the thing that was incredible was the length of the sweep from head to foot and back down again was one integrated continuous rhythm that didn't break, you know, and it couldn't break, you know. And now I really got that if I had some shorts or something like that on, it would have broken the rhythm. It needed the one continual rhythm. And there's a very thick oil that you use from what I remember. But then all of a sudden the other work from your foot started to come in, which was as dexterous as a hand would be, if not more so. And because of the way the foot appears as bigger than a hand really. And then when you did the work on my face, it was the most remarkable thing, because I've, you know, like you said, you've never been touched that way with someone's foot. I've never been touched that way on my face. It was actually more than anyone would be loving with my face, but with a foot, and the dexterity of your feet with that. It was something to behold, really. It's quite a remarkable experience.
Yeah, I really remember that session because obviously I was peeing my pants because I was massaging my yoga teacher arm, like Tom. I was like, oh, and so I just let all of that go. And I remember you saying, I have never felt my own physiology, and my and that's why you said you've got to do Tom, because obviously we're all following the same lines. It's all, you know, whatever map you want to use, but that particular map has so many connections to others. You know, I never forget you said I've never, because I am you know, naked, I can feel my body so differently than ever before, and I always remember that session with you. Yeah,
true, because you know, the point of receiving it, it's not just about receiving it. You go meet it. You know, as a receiver, you definitely go and meet it, because there's so many dynamics at play. I mean, I recommend that practice to anyone, to go, you know, go see Helen for her feet. You know, it's really quite incredible. It's really quite incredible. And there's an interesting link there, because of course, you know, you've met Tom Myers, you've done the Anatomy Trains courses with him at Natural Bodies. So did you find that by learning and understanding the nature of those continuities that Tom had mapped out, did it kind of confirm to you what you were doing? Did you find that it enhanced what you were doing? Or, I don't know, I mean, because, you know, for me, say within shiatsu anyway, it was like, oh, well, this just makes sense of some of the connections that we feel regardless of energetic meridians, but more of a different continuity into the body. You know, what did you notice out of that?
it was like landing in a. It was like landing, putting my roots into the earth and going,
Okay.
That makes absolute sense. And actually working on Tom's body himself, because we knew at that time he wasn't moving his body so much. So I know you were encouraging him to connect that in. But I could actually work with his own body and sense through my feet his wisdom. That also made sense to me. But yeah, it absolutely brought everything together, and it made it complete for me. That particular map that he offered at that time, I know it's moved and changed, but at that particular time still holds a very special place to me. It was kind of a skeleton for me, structural grounding, and it made those continuations make sense. So I could see the body, because of course, when we first learned massage, all we did in the physiology classes, AMP, was what was that famous blue book of that guy where you had to wear, gloves if somebody has HIV. We were told to wear gloves, really antiquated stuff like that. And it was this particular linear thing we had to learn, and it was only muscles. Fascia was never mentioned. And so I remember having my little cards and learning the muscles and the insertion and all that, which I still don't remember. And so when I met Tom, and the way that you and obviously all the other teachers that you bring in, all the wonderful teachers, Elizabeth and Monica and Pat Sparrow, lovely Pat Sparrow, all of those incredible teachers, Sandra, Diane, it all made sense. So not only what Tom offered, but the whole, all of the information that we were getting at that time in our community made absolute sense for me in the Chivuti, because it just made a roadmap for me that was continuous, rather than, I'm going to work the biceps muscle here, the biceps muscle here because there's pain. It's like, well, actually, let's just forget about that and just do the whole thing and see what happens at the end. So I never made any promises. Oh, like this massage does that, and I just said, look, this massage it's just great. It's like having an MOT, and I know, because there's so many things I could have said that it does, but at the end of the day, it's so unique and individual. But Tom's work definitely brought that bigger picture in for me, completely, and how it's the nadis, or the trigger points, or the mama points, all of that, Chinese medicine, how it's all interconnected. It made it really come together for me.
That's good. So from that time, I mean, you mentioned you came onto the teacher trainings, and it seemed, because you were taken by the work that we do with Vanda's work, and I never forget this, because, and as you've mentioned, we had lots of different teachers coming into the teacher training, and Elizabeth Pounce, I'll never forget the weekend that Elizabeth Pounce came in and introduced her way of exploring Vanda's work. And I'll never forget your face, because there was something about the way Elizabeth started to work that, because this, being someone that runs teacher trainings now, is that it can't always be the one person that's going to get it to everyone. And so having a group of teachers come in to actually impart their knowledge, to show different aspects of the same work, was really that point that unfolds people. And there was that moment when I could see all of a sudden Helen Noakes just became, you just flowered, and there was this that smile got bigger. And from that moment on, you and Elizabeth just gelled. And I think that was a wonderful meeting for you two, because I think that, just from what I see anyway, I mean, I might be wrong here, it literally directed a big part of your path from there. So tell me about that, because it's fascinating what happened from that moment, really.
Thank you. That's a really beautiful observation. Yeah, it was definitely a meeting of souls, dare I use that word, but a meeting of energies of recognition. And I see Elizabeth as my second mum, really. I would definitely say she's my mentor, and I would definitely recommend that everybody has a mentor in their life, because it's invaluable. That's also like on all levels. And she'll just tell you how you know her. She'll just tell you how it is, and stuff a wet fish in your face. That'll be done, dusted. Don't do that. And she has. So yes, coming back to your question, sorry. Yes, when I met her, I decided then to take my very good friend to Florence on her first retreat. And I was fascinated because of her relationship with Vanda, and how in our teacher training, We know there was a transition from year 1 to year 2 for lots of different reasons, and how she managed to magically create cohesion and safety in our group, that we could re-gel, if that's the word, come together. And she held us in this lotus flower. I'm to be such a hippie, but she held us in this place where we could, and then move on to the next phase of our training. And so that really impressed me, because I thought, okay, that's a magic that I don't see very often in a teacher, because you can have a good teacher, but do they have the magic? And she had it for me. I know she's not everyone's cup of tea. And I kind of liked it that she's got this magic, which she gets her sword out, mate, and she cuts away. That's if there's anything she doesn't like, she gets her sword out and it's done, cut, finished. She's got eyes at the back of her head. She's got eyes everywhere. And I've obviously, because I've encouraged her to come to India, I've kind of become her manager, and I made her do a website. And it all kind of gradually built up to this relationship. But when I went to Florence, she took us around the Uffizi with her. I mentioned this before in a podcast. Anyway, so we had about 7 paintings that we all studied with this guide, and she brought those postcards into the room in the yogashala, put them on the floor, and said, okay, let's do our yoga around how we feel about these paintings. And I was like, okay, this is, I'm digging this, and the care and the attention and the service, that's what I always remind her, the service she gives. So before we left, she took each one of us up into her special room for at least 2 hours and gave her personal feedback for the week that we had with her. And she would write letters to you, handwritten letters, ask how you are, how your life's going. She'd remember everything that you said. So for me, the inspiration over the years has been to watch not only the level of service and care that she has, but also the attention to detail. And like Diane, she completely moves and changes all the time, depending what she's into, and then can't remember what she said, which is great. And how she has, as I've mentioned before in another podcast, Elizabeth has this great talent, if I could call it a talent, but she's lives her life, which has not been, we've all got challenges. She just recently, her husband left his body really recently, and she's been through some incredible journeys with her own body, through her own journey through with Vanda and all the teachers that she was with before, which was and Diane, she got sustained quite a serious injury there. How she gets through, and how she does it through her faith in yoga, and her faith in what she believes in, and movement, and her mindset. And I'm not into that, what she's into. I mean, she chants the Vedas and all the time, and she's into mantra and singing. I'm not into that, but I really admire her commitment and faith to that. And watch her go through life and get through some seriously difficult situations. And at one time, we went to Rishikesh, and our whole family, apart from her husband, her whole family came. Her daughter and her son and the kids, and we all did it together. Oh. Fantastic. So I've got to know her family. I've got to know her and her husband, of course, and my partner Johnson. We've been there a lot together. So she's become so many different roles in my life, and I really appreciate that. I spoke to her just before she went onto the operating theatre, and I had a really fantastic conversation with her. And I said, you tell that anaesthetist to pray around you, and make sure when you're opening that body that they treat you with such respect and love, that you're opening up your body to them. And we kind of created this whole ceremony she was going to do before they opened her up. And I felt really privileged to have that conversation. And I knew she'd survive. I knew she'd get through, but it was a strong situation. Yeah. And so things like that I really value, because it's not about just the yoga that she teaches, but that relationship is, I don't even like to use the word yoga, but that relationship's invaluable.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's almost like the essence of what we learn from those practices doesn't just exist as something that's on a mat. Exactly. It's existing in everything that you're doing with that individual. Yeah. and she displays that in how she lives her life, and it's it's kind of come through you as well. You know, you're displaying that in your way too, and then you've got that interaction with her, and then that goes off out into the world through the two of you. Because your way of working and your practice has definitely adapted and changed out of your meeting with her.
Mm.
You know, I think it's taken you into a real deep place, because just the way we interact and the way you are is very different now. And that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I've told you, I've shared with you a few times how she's absolutely annihilated me publicly when I'm teaching, to the point that I want the floor to swallow me up. And Rue, my lovely partner with Steve, Rue he's so sensitive and so tuned in. He said, Helen, why, instead of you feeling annihilated, why don't you see it as an initiation into your next step? And I thought, that's it. And even what's so wonderful is she has no idea she's even doing it. I said, Elizabeth, do you realize that what you just said in front of all those people, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, no, I've got no idea. And it's you have to laugh. It's hilarious.
Mm.
You've been present to it. We've shared with you a few things, and that's why I love you coming to India, because you come in and bring this other dimension for us, and I can share with you some more personal stuff, and you give me some great insights together, because we obviously know each other for so long, and the three of us and you together, Steve, Rue, and I, and you, I just feel this like wonderful team connection. I love it when you come to go with Sharon. I really do love it. It just wouldn't be the same without you guys. But yeah, I've shared when she was there as well, and Elizabeth came, and then we were all together. That was a really interesting dynamic. So I really appreciate the difficult stuff that she's challenged me so much, and it's taught me so to make my boundaries so clear and stand my own ground. And actually, I can say no to that energy, and then discuss it afterwards. But what's great is if there is any unrest, which is hardly ever, it's always discussed afterwards. It's never shoved down. It's always discussed, and it's always anticipated and cleared. Always.
That's great. That's really great. So let's get to the India thing. How did you what came up with how did you get to the idea of running a teacher training? Because the thing that is really quite remarkable is that there's only 2 or 3 people really that have come out of the courses that we've had, say, from Natural Bodies, that have then progressed forwards and then started to run their teacher training. So, keeping the torch flowing, you've got Dot Bowen, there's you, keeping that torch going for the work, then with your own take on it. And then you've teamed up with 2 other people that are involved in that to me it's like, hang on, Ruth and Steve, I mean, Helen, they're not the people I expected you to join up with, but it works in such a perfect way, the way the 3 of you have come together. So how did that come about? I'd love to have been the fly on the wall in just how that came about in the first conversations.
That's basically because they're really good looking. I want to work with I was like, wow, this is great. I'm working with 2 gorgeous men who are, whose bodies have completely changed, by the way. I've seen them go through their journeys. Now, we met, obviously I know because Rude and Steve did your training as well, through the Sweat Lodge, the White Owl Sweat Lodge. And so we met in Battle, and we used to go there. And then we used to go to Stanmer Park and right near the Earthship in Brighton. And, I was like, God, Steve's a bit of all right. And he's really great. And he was, and I had some lessons, boxing lessons from him where he punched me in the face once. And then they started coming to India. So I was already going to India with Julie, Martin, and Brahmani Yoga was born. And I was very privileged to be part of that. And that opened up a whole nother world as well with her. And that was a great time. That was a great, great 7 years. What a time that was in India. My God, that was wild. And no regrets, fantastic. And so Rue and Steve started coming to India quite a lot. and Rue was teaching at Brahmani as well, and you know, he started establishing his stuff, and Steve started coming more often. They said, look, we want to kind of do what you're doing. So we sat in a retreat center called Swan, which is a very traditional, very traditional lineage of yoga there. And I sat there, and the boys happened to come for a cup of tea, and I said, hey, why don't we do a course together? It was literally spontaneous. It wasn't something I'd thought about. We'd arranged to be there. They just said, look, we want to kind of do what you're doing. And I said, okay, well, why don't we do a course together then? Why don't we just write it and make our own course, and let's offer something that we would like to go to. A month immersion. I know that's a word that's overused, but somehow an intensive, I didn't even want to call it a training, because to be honest, I didn't feel qualified enough to do it. I did not feel like I was experienced enough to do that, but I could see that with what they had to offer and where they were coming from, that us as a team could offer something very new and different, with Steve's observations into the body and rehab and strengthening, mobilization, and Rue's incredible wisdom around the Tao and his expression through Kung Fu and Qigong, and his philosophy. And, you know, I said, I don't even really want to talk about Indian philosophy at all. I want to go completely left field. And we wrote it in like nothing, weeks. We just wrote it. And it just came together. And within 1 year, that was 2013. And within 1 year, we started our first one. And I happened to meet a Greek Cypriot gentleman who I knew ran a yoga center. And I told him, I met him on an airplane totally spontaneously. And he said, I said, I'm doing this. He said, do it at my place. All right. And that was it. It was as easy as that. And that's what tends to happen in India is that happens, yeah, and you just open. You can't plan anything in India. You just turn up and you just get taken on this journey. You go with it. Just say yes.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because when you try and plan something out there, the opposite happens. You give yourself to it, and things just open up and keep opening up. So, how many courses have you run now? 7. So I think I came in on, was it the 2nd or 3rd? Initially. Third.
We had Yanel, do you remember?
So I mean, that was really quite remarkable, and a real privilege to be asked to come and teach on that as well. I mean, I was, you know, when you said that you felt a certain way when you were massaging me, I was nervous coming to teach on my students and friends, you know, friends first and foremost now, course, and to bring what we do now, but to also, you know, clarify the course or what have you. It was amazing to be part of, and to witness how you guys work together is there's 3 strong individuals that work as 3 strong individuals that have equal respect for each other. And you know, background stuff happens with any course and how people are. I wasn't witness to anything, if there even are, you know, one person trying to dominate the situation. It doesn't seem like that to me. The thing I like about it is the seamless quality in how it presents itself. You know, and you get a really interesting group of international students come to that, and you know, we still see them. You know, they're there on out there in the social media world, but they come to various courses. Some have done some of my courses after that, and so on. And you keep progressing your trainings with them too. And also from that, I've seen you flourish into an international teacher where you've been invited pretty much everywhere. So, you know, where are you running? Well, where have you been running most of your stuff from that?
Well, I have to say that the springboard for that was Goa, you know, was Ramani Yoga, really, because Julie had this great talent for bringing people together. And so we had this community where we would basically teach yoga and party together and ride Enfields, as you did. And then I would meet people from all over the world. So 3 or 4 particular individuals that I stayed in contact with, they just came up to me and said, do you want to come to Finland? Teach that. That was 12 years ago. And I went, okay. And so I gave her a call and just said, hey, Mehdi, can I come? And she went, yeah. And so, you know, I kind of kept those contacts in Switzerland and other Belgium and Finland, Germany, and just ended up then becoming really good friends. So now Mary is my, I regard her as my sister, actually, as a blood sister, and we're doing trainings. I've done Shivuti trainings. I'm doing a 100-hour with Rue there. And we do stuff together, and we collaborate with other teachers there the whole time. So we've created this connection with Scandinavia and Iceland as well. So somehow places I never imagined myself, I just said yes to the invitation. One time I got an invitation. Oh, dear Helen, I live in Saint Martin. I said, where's that? It's somewhere in the Caribbean. I said, well, where's that? I had to look on a map. Do you want to come and teach us Shivuti? And I went, yeah. So I found out how to get there. I said, if you get me 6 people, I'm there. And that was it. I suddenly found myself in paradise, and we set up the ropes outside on a platform overlooking the sea. And I'm in my bikini teaching the chav, you know, but for 10 days. It was phenomenal. And things like that happened from the springboard of saying yes to Goa. And Julie just met me because I happened to be doing cello lessons with her partner at the time, Barnaby, and I gave her a massage, and she said, please come to Goa. That's okay, all right then. So it was all just basically going with life, saying yes to life and to the flow. And that was what India has taught me. So I can't remember the question you asked me, sorry, Gary, but that was a springboard. Yeah. That was a springboard to those connections abroad, was basically meeting. You know, we had 100 people sometimes coming through Brahmani every day. And, you know, I would teach in the morning, and sometimes I'd get one person, and sometimes I'd get 22. Never knew who you were getting every day. And then I'd go off to Julie's class and do like a load of other stuff. And then I'd go out and party, basically. And I'd also, you know, Julie was the first one that said, why don't you teach chav here? And I went, oh yeah. So it was all like that, basically. It's nothing planned. It was all just spontaneous energy. And luckily in India, we had the community and the connections to do to create what we wanted. We could just make it up.
Yeah. And this is the thing I've noticed as well, when we're, you know, going back to the centre that I've been coming to, where you run your courses from, is that the people that host the centre, the owners there, the couple there, they've got the utmost respect for you guys, and also the team, you know, because you treat me so well out there. You know, I have my driver, Johnny, who's such a wonderful guy, but you know, they love the way that you are, because you also have a lot of respect for the way that the locals are. So you, and this, you know, I see this with you. You just blend into the situation so well. And you know, Helen, the Enfield motorbike girl, you know, the thing with that though is that how you appear out there is the person that sort of rocks up from the bike to teaching, and there's still this energy that's got a lot of drive to it, and yet it's extremely sensitive when it goes in, but it's got a firmness to it all at the same time. It's the same as what I noticed with you with, you know, receiving the massage. There's Helen, the woman, but Helen, this strong, powerful person that comes in that can also just turn to potty sometimes in that moment. It's that mix is all there. So there's nothing, you know, how you see Helen is how she is, and it's been remarkable to be part of and to be around. You know, I love it. So what is it that we'll have to wrap up quite soon as well? What is it that is driving your practice at the moment? I mean, I know things are different. You're in Greece, and most of us aren't out there sort of teaching the way that we usually do. But when you've recently been out there giving workshops and teaching on part of your travels, you know, what's been the thrust of your work so far? What's really driving it at the moment for you?
It's a great question. The first thing that pops up through my chest, as it were, is how I've been handling the situation that we found ourselves in the world, particularly being in India, where we were thrust with such a lot of fear. So what's been driving me is watching my responses in my body
Mm.
and in my breath, and observing, what you said just said in the class we just had an hour ago together, is watching where I feel free and expansive, and watching where I'm holding and feel contracted and unknown and difficult, and not necessarily wanting to know why, but having the interest to open up that space and to dive in there. And that interesting talk we had about alignment, because that's an unfortunate word, but just to make space for yourself to be yourself, and for expansion and movement to happen, and for freedom, whatever freedom means. So I think what's driving me is just being open to what's happening in the moment. So responding to the moment without planning, and being able to go with that moment. So for instance, what, we've got something coming up in Finland, so we've just made the decision that we can't go there for lots of reasons. So we're now adapting to something completely different, and we're going to do it online. But it's that adaptation, and that lovely word that you and a lovely Lena brought up in that wonderful book you've made together, ensomatose. That's really, I would say, that's also a driving force, that connection with, to do with integrity with the environment, and your inner environment and your outer and your external, and how that all merges. So that's been my driving force, actually observing how I'm responding to each moment that changes constantly.
That's really brilliant. I mean, that really sums up as well the nature of what we've kind of understood from the teachings of Vanda's work. And I think the true nature of the flexibility for what that would mean, because a lot of people think stretching is flexibility. It's not. The ability to adapt to the environment in the moment. And, wow, what a fantastic way to go with that. That's a perfect place to end it on. Helen, where can people find you? If they want to find you to do stuff with you, where do they find you?
Just come to Greece. I'm here. On my website, which is I'm just actually going to change all the colours and everything, but my website, which is my name, helennoakes.net, and of course that's interconnected with the Yoga Health Mandala. I've got a Facebook page that I'm always posting on, and Instagram. I'm always posting poetry or inspiring pictures that my girlfriends or boyfriends have taken or whatever. And constantly interested in nutrition and loads of other things I'm really, really into, which I haven't gone into here. So yeah, I'm a bit, I'm online, and I have a website, and everything is always posted on that. And I'm doing a little spontaneous training here in September for Chad, just for a group of 2. And I post things online all the time.
You're also doing stuff with Eckhart Yoga as well, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I forgot, sorry. Oh, thank you for reminding me. Eckhart Yoga, a wonderful woman, Esther Eckhart. Desperate for you to be on there. She, I love meeting her. Yeah, no pressure. And I love, I've learned so much being on that. My God, teaching to a camera, what a test that is. So yeah, I've loved it, and I've actually created some really great friends, of which I have connection with in America, actually. So yeah, Eckhart Yoga, and you can directly connect to Eckhart Yoga through my website. There's a button you press, and it takes you directly to my page. And there's a load of great teachers on there. I mean, anything from teachings of Ayurveda to AMP to Yin Yoga to whatever. Everything is covered. And they're a really ethical company, actually. They have a 4-day week. All their people that work for them are all happy. She really takes care of her employees. Yeah.
That's good to know. And also, as we spoke before, we'll have you, Rupert, and Steve together, and then the 3 of you can talk about your training, and we'll kind of get that known to the world differently as well.
Thank you. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I love working with them. And you, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Helen. Amazing. Yes, and to Sharon. Well, I'm Sharon Carter's husband, so.
Sharon Carter's husband, you are, yes, that's how
Yeah.
you'll know.
Okay, you. Well, thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much, Gary. Cheers.